So here's the scenario. You are on a God-given mission to rebuild something of great value. Everything is provided, you have all the instructions, the resources, and all you need is the manpower. So, you approach a couple of people with the plan, but they straight up laugh in your face and told you that you were crazy. But you are not dismayed, because you know that your mission comes straight from God, and nobody can stop it. When those same people see that you are actually achieving the plan, they become angry and begin to literally throw hate in all forms. Doubtful messages, send people to see what you are doing, slander, defamation, all manners of intimidation tactics, and even straight up death threats. So how do you handle hate like that? Well, you simply give it to God and also prepare for war just in case. The Book of Nehemiah tells us the story of all the things that Nehemiah went through on his mission to repair the wall of Jerusalem. The story is also one that I personally dub as how to deal with your haters the biblical way, because Nehemiah had some haters, at least according to the modern internet definition of the word. And Nehemiah's haters weren't the ones that left hate comments under your videos and posts. They were the ones that actually attempted to take action to take him out. And we'll get right into why I say that after a quick channel sellout, where I ask you to leave a like on the video if you are enjoying it, and even subscribe for more unsung Bible characters and filler stories you might not hear about in a church sermon brought to you by Xplanations. Yes, working title TM, where in this installment we'll be taking a look at Nehemiah Chapters 2, 4, and 6, which touches on how Nehemiah dealt with those who came against him on his mission to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And I'll be reading from the New King James Version. Then I said to them, "You see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lies waste, and its gates are burned with fire. Come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. And I told them of the hand of my God which had been good upon me, and also of the king's words that he spoken to me. So they said, Let us raise up and build. Then they set their hands to this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they laughed at us and despised us, and said, What is this thing that you are doing? Will you rebel against the king? So I answered them and said to them, The God of heaven himself will prosper us. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build. But you have no heritage or right or memorial in Jerusalem. So let's get some context on the book of Nehemiah before we go forward. Nehemiah was a Hebrew in Persia when the word approached him that the temple in Jerusalem was being reconstructed. He grew anxious knowing there was no wall to protect the city. Nehemiah then asked God to use him to save the city. God answered his prayers by softening the heart of the Persian king HATERS, who gave not only his blessing but also supplies to be used in the project. Nehemiah is given permission by the king to return to Jerusalem, where he is made governor. In spite of the opposition and accusations, which we will get into, the wall was built and the enemy silenced. The people, inspired by Nehemiah, gave tithes of much money, supplies, and manpower to complete the wall in a remarkable 52 days, despite much opposition. Chapter 3 details all the procedures that Nehemiah and the people took when it came to building the wall. As they were making progress, chapter 4 says, But it so happened when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, that he was furious and very indignant, and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they receive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him, and he said, Whatever they build, if even a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall. Some real mockery going down here. Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach on their own heads, and give them as plunder to a land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity, and do not let their sin be blotted out from before you, for they have provoked you to anger before the builders. So he built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. Now it happened, when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodite, I'm sorry if I butchered that, heard that the walls of Jerusalem were being restored and the gaps were beginning to be closed, that they became very angry, and all of them conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. Nevertheless, we made our prayer to our God, and because of them, we set a watch against them day and night. Then Judah said, "The strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall." And our adversaries said, "They will neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and kill them and cause the work to cease." So it was, when the Jews who dwelt near them came, that they told us 10 times, "From whatever place you turn, they will be upon us." Therefore I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings, and I set the people according to their families, with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your brothers, your daughters, your wives, and your houses." And it happened, when our enemies heard that it was known to us, and that God had brought their plot to nothing, that all of us returned to the wall, everyone to his work. So it was from that time on that half of my servants worked at construction, while the other half held the spears, the shields, the bows, and war armor. And the leaders were behind all the house of Judah, those who built on the wall and those who carried burdens, loaded themselves so that with one hand they worked at construction, and with the other held a weapon. Every one of the builders had his weapon girded at his side as he built, and the one who sounded the trumpet was beside me. Then I said to the nobles, the rulers, and the rest of the people, "The work is great and extensive, and we are separated far from one another on the wall. Whenever you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us." I don't know about you guys, but that is one of my favorite passages in the book of Nehemiah. Just the courage that Nehemiah talks with in particular, even though has enemies that are plotting against him from all sides, and just the courage in God that God would fight for us, that God will keep us, to keep the faith and just continue the work that God has set out before us, because when God sets out the plan for us, ain't nobody could ever come and stop us. That's what I get from this passage personally, and why I decided to turn it into this unsung Bible stories. I recently just finished reading the book of Nehemiah and said, yeah, I could definitely use this for unsung Bible stories. I've never really heard much of the story of Nehemiah, which is why this series is named the name that the series is named, if that makes sense. That passage just gets me excited, if you know what I mean. Well, let's continue into chapter 6, the secret spy chapter. Yes, literally, it's a secret spy chapter. And the false accusations one. Let's get into it. Now what happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall and that there were no bricks left in it, though at the time I had not hung the doors in the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, "Come, let us meet together among the villages in the plain of Ono." But they thought to harm me. So I sent messengers to them, saying, "I am doing a great work, so that I cannot come down. Why should the work cease while I leave it and go down to you?" But they sent to me this message 4 times, and I answered them in the same manner. Then Sanballat sent his servant to me as before, the 5th time, with an open letter in his hand. In it was written, "It is reported among the nations," and Geshem says, "that you and the Jews plan to rebel. Therefore, according to these rumors, you are rebuilding the wall that you may be their king. And you have also appointed prophets to proclaim concerning you at Jerusalem, saying, 'There is a king in Judah.' Now these matters will be reported to the king. So come, therefore, and let us consult together." Then I sent to him, saying, "No such things as you say are being done, but you invent them to your own heart." Big slander going on here, y'all. For they were trying to make us afraid, saying, "Their hands will be weakened in the work, and it will not be done." Now therefore, O God, strengthen my hands. Afterward I came to the house of Shemaiah, the son of Deliah, the son of Metabel, hope I say that right, who was a secret informer. And he said, "Let us meet together in the house of God, within the temple, and let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. Indeed, at night they will come to kill you." And I said, "Should such a man as I flee? And who is there such as I who would go into the temple to save his life? I will not go in." Then I perceived that God had not sent him at all, but that he pronounced this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Yeah, big spy things going on here. For this reason he was hired, that I should be afraid and act that way and sin, so that they might have cause for an evil report, that they might reproach me. So just a little context on this. When it came to the house of God, from what I read and scholarly sources, only the priests were able to enter into the inner part of the temple, into the house of God. Just looking at the Faith Life Study Bible, it says laymen were not allowed to enter the temple, with the reference being Numbers 18 verse 7 touches on that no one was allowed to enter into the house of the Lord other than the priests. So what they were trying to do is to get Nehemiah scared enough that he would go into the inner part of the house of the Lord, so that they could come and say, "Look what Nehemiah is doing according to the Lord." This is, like trying to get him on some accusations, but Nehemiah wasn't folding. That's why I love this story so much, like so much back and forth. Literally send a spy to lie and try to catch him off guard, but Nehemiah wasn't about that. Nehemiah wasn't getting caught playing for slips here. And continuing from verse 14, "My God, remember Tobiah and Sanballat according to these their works, and their prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets who would have made me afraid." So the wall was completed on the 25th day of Elul in 52 days. And it happened when all our enemies heard of it, and all the nations around us saw these things, that they were very disheartened in their own eyes, and they perceived that this work was done by our God. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and the letters of Tobiah came to them. For many in Judah were pledged to him, because he was the son-in-law of Shechaniah, and the son of Arna, and his son Jehonhanan, I'm sorry I'm butchering the names, had married the daughter of Methuselah, the son of
Berechiah.
Yeah, my accent was not allowing me to say that one. Also, they reported his good deeds before me, and reported my words to him. Tobiah sent letters to frighten me. Nehemiah had to deal with spies and straight up slanderous intimidation tactics that tried to deter him from the mission God had sent him on. I believe it's safe to say that none of us watching this video have been tasked by God with rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem in 52 days like Nehemiah. But it may be something as simple as starting a YouTube channel, blog posts, ministering to people, or whatever it may be. There's no task given to us by God that is too small or too big to complete. A task that you know for a fact will come with much adversity, and probably even a lot of haters according to the modern definition of the word. But in the midst of those adversaries, I encourage you to, rather than cave into the pressure, do like Nehemiah and put your full faith in God to have you against all those that come against you. As we see in the case of Nehemiah, it definitely isn't easy, but it is well worth it. So I pray that whatever task God has given you to do, that you stand like Nehemiah in the midst of adversity and put your full faith in him. Not Nehemiah, but God. Just no misconception there. And with that, we'll end off this installment of the unsung Bible characters and filler stories you probably might not have heard about in a church sermon, brought to you by the Xplanations. Yes, working title TM. If you watched to this point in the video, then why not consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing with post notifications, and even sharing the channel with others. On the channel, we primarily break down fictional media from a Christian perspective with emphasis on stories that twist the Bible, but we also make more generalized Christian content covering unsung Bible stories you probably haven't heard about, and an initiative to do Christian creative projects ranging from making replicas of different places in the Bible to recreating scenes from Christian fictional films into a small-scale video game, using Unreal Engine, which is the same game engine that games like Fortnite, Gotham Knights, and others use. So if that type of content intrigues you, then hit that subscribe button. If you're looking for something else to watch on the channel, then I highly recommend you check out the story of the 2 cows that God used to return his ark to Israel, which is available to click on right now.